Hello. This session is about some suggested guidelines or a proposed structure for your dyad practice, for your practicing with a practice partner. It's a simple kind of idea of one, conceiving of the entire practice, whatever you're practicing has in it built in a series of practices. So I will point those out to you as I go along. But say you have a date set up with your practice partner, and then you get on your video call or your face-to-face call or whatever communication form you're using. And you say hello and you do whatever your cultural, but basically how are you is a typical kind of in whatever language. And that is actually one of these practices that I'm talking about, is to actually listen to what the person says and maybe follow up with an empathic guess or some kind of expression on your part to actually get the connection, find out what's going on that might prompt them to show up and not be so self-connected as they would like. And it's a support for them, it's a support for you, and it's a practice for you to take into your day-to-day life when we've become routinized to saying, hello, how are you? And sometimes we don't even say that. We go over it and we don't think it's important. And we get caught up in the hurly-burly of business and we don't think that it's important. And to just remind yourself each time that you have that initial greeting interaction is just how important that is, and that there is skill to it and there's a way to practice it. Okay, so you get on the call and you check in to see how each of you is doing. And then it's also a practice for you to articulate how you're doing and what you're feeling and what your needs are and what might have prompted it. And sort of, how much of a story do you tell? Not much of a story. You can practice reducing the story. So then you do your check-in, then you just see what are you going to practice. Maybe you have a plan, maybe you've planned it ahead, but in any case, that there's a decision of what are we going to practice, and are we going to practice with a real scenario? You can practice with a mock scenario. But if you're going to practice with a real scenario, whose scenario? And are you both going to, and what roles are you going to play in this scenario? And if you have an observer, you can actually I've had people so triggered by their scenario that they want to practice with that they couldn't even imagine playing themselves or the other person that they wanted to play the observer. But that's not typically the case. Typically, if you're in a practice pattern with your practice partner that you want to practice in yourself, doing whatever map that you're talking about. So then you get that decided. And then whoever is going to go first, you decide that. Each of these decisions is an opportunity for conflict and is a choice that you can make to use it as a practice, because conflict's going to come up between you and your practice partner. So you decide who's going to play what role. If you're going to play, if you're the person that's presenting the scenario and you want to play yourself in that scenario, then you decide that mutually with your partner. Then you tell enough of the story to get you started. And this is also one of those practice points, is practice telling the minimum amount of story you need. I suggest that in almost every scenario I've been able to think of, you can start that scenario by saying, I have a conflict with someone at work. And that's really all I need to say, because the information will come out during the course of the role play. And what I find is that when I want to tell more, it's because I want to enlist my practice partner in my view of the situation, essentially my enemy images. And so if I really shorten that, the story that I'm giving the other person, my practice partner, then I can, avoid this thing of trying to enlist them in my view of the world. And then I want to do something about the difficulty. I want to dial it up or down. I want to tell my practice partner, this is something I'm not feeling really confident about. I'd like you to help me identify your need, or help me to do this or that, and not play the kind of difficult role. Or you may want, I want you to inhabit this role and go at it full, and then we'll get to that in a second, but you can stop the role play and adjust in the middle of the role play. You want to confirm any agreements you have about confidentiality. That's probably, you don't need to do it every time because you have a set of agreements and it's understood that you will do that. But anyway, just to check with that. And now, right before you're ready to start, you want to check in to see whether either of you has gotten so triggered by the talk about the scenario, or even the thinking of the scenario, that you need to do self-connection practice. And I've been in practice situations where that was the practice for the person. They articulated the scenario that they wanted to work with, and then they were triggered and they did self-connection with support of their practice partner, giving them empathy for the rest of the time that they had designated to practice. So that, and then they wanted to come back to it in subsequent practice sessions, but that can happen. So pay attention and ask the person if they want to do self-connection practice before they do anything else. Now, once you start to practice, here are some of the kind of controls. I think of this as a flight simulator, the people, to learn how to fly jets and to do the kind of first responder and military scenario building using real simulated situations. You create simulators, and these flight simulators now can be, like I read recently, $25 million to have a flight simulator that you can program in every airport in the world. And, you have your coach sitting right next to you, and he can, or she can flip off engines and just create the scenario and make it as difficult as possible for the person in the hot seat, so to speak. So that's the same thing in here. Here you have controls, and the person with the scenario, the person that has the charge about this, is the person who's at the controls. And you can pause to do self-connection practice at any time. You can consider out loud your options when you pause. You can pause to ask your partner for feedback or even advice on what they would do in your situation. You can pause and ask your practice partner to dial the difficulty up or down and be specific about, I want you to, make me make 3 or 4 guesses before you, acknowledge the need that you're role playing. That's an example. And Another thing that you can do is you can pause and rewind so that you have a do-over, so that you can try 2 or 3 different versions, and then you can ask your practice partner for their biofeedback of which one of them felt, which of the versions felt better for your practice partner. Okay, then after you've completed the whatever you're going to do in your practice and in your role play, then each of you provides biofeedback, meaning, you know, how do you feel it, report how you felt at various points in the role play. And that's to give feedback for the person primarily who's practicing, but also for the person who is the practice partner, to support them. You know, when you stopped me and you did whatever, I felt a little uncomfortable, or that was really satisfying, or whatever. So both people are in learning roles at this debrief that you're doing here, and providing the feedback. Now, if there's any other kind of feedback beyond just biofeedback that a person wants to give, particularly if you want to give it, check with the other person. And if they want it, and if they don't want it, be willing to just not provide it. And if they do want it, you can practice giving feedback. That's a whole session here about how you can give feedback and maintain connection with the person while you're giving feedback. But the key point here is not to give advice or to use judgments or criticisms unless a person asks for it. Now, some people ask for advice. Rarely does anyone ask for your judgments or criticism. They'd like to have you translated into feelings and needs. And then after you've completed the whole scenario and you've gotten your feedback, then you go on to the second person if you have time in that session. And oh, there's another piece that I left out of this, which is to have a timekeeper, so that one of you uses a countdown timer. So many of our watches and phones now have these kinds of countdown timers to allocate the time as you've agreed to at the beginning of the session. Okay, that's it for this piece, and I look forward to your participation in future videos.